Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. It's Peter here. I hope you all have a great start of the new year. I thought I will get myself a little late Christmas present. It's a scratch map of the world. I think I scratched a little bit too much of this area, whatever. And the reason for doing this is to see how many countries I have visited already in a fun and interesting way. Also by doing so you might as well learn a little bit more about me, and of course I want to see how many countries I still need to visit. Okay, so we need some rules first. There are some people who say that you have to be in the country for at least 24 hours to count it as a visit. I think I will do it a little bit more relaxed than this, and for me just stepping down on the country soil is enough to count it as a visit. So it doesn't matter if I stayed for an hour or 24 hours, I will count that as a visit of the country and will scratch it off the map. I think it's only one country that would otherwise not be scratched from the map. If I would draw to the country in a car without stopping, that would not count as a visit, but as long as I stop anywhere in the country and get out of the car, that would count and I can scratch it off. And with that, we can start. I have some coins in here. I have 10 pence and a 1p for the smaller countries. I think the best way to do it would be in a chronological order from the first ever country I have visited to the last. And with that we have our first country, and that's Slovakia. That's my home country where I come from, and actually I was born in Czechoslovakia, as it used to be called Czechoslovak Socialistic Republic, aka ČSSR. Country was under communist regime. We lived in the north part of the country for the first 4 years, and later we moved to Bratislava, where I stayed for 21 years. I basically went through all my schools and education in there. We can scratch our first country, Slovakia. In 1986, I was 7 years old at the time, and it was my first holiday. We went to Yugoslavia. It was my first country that I ever visited. Also, the country no longer exists, it splits. So we've been in the part that is Croatia, and we've been on Makarska Riviera, and it's on the Adriatic Sea. There is a couple of firsts for me when I've been on that holiday. I learned how to swim, and my brother almost drowned, so fun times. I also remember having a cornetto ice cream for the very first time. Also, my mom wanted me to try pizza for the first time, but as a 7-year-old I was not really impressed and refused to even try it. But we can scratch Croatia as our second country, so let's scratch Croatia. About 1 or 2 years later, my second visited country, still as a kid. I was, I think, about 8-9 years old. I don't really remember. It was Hungary, and we went to Hajdúszoboszló Hungarospa Aqua Park. It was on the eastern part of the Hungary, not far from Romania borders. So we went there again as a family with another family friend of ours. There was loads of water slides. They have a huge pool with artificial waves. I also remember I found 20 forints on the road outside of the water park. Third country, Hungary. We can scratch that off right away. Next country is, I think, Austria. I think that is after the communist regime already fell, because I remember the borders opened and you can suddenly freely travel. They started organizing this one-day trip to Austria, to Vienna, because Vienna was like 1 hour from Bratislava. It was perfect for a one-day trip, and we joined these group tours. It included shopping, tour of the Schönbrunn Palace, and at the end of the day it was a visit of the theme park. So as a kid I wanted to go to the theme park and was not as impressed with the shopping and some palace with some gardens, but that was my first time I've been in Austria, so we can scratch off the Austria next. Next is the Czech Republic. First time I've been to Czech Republic, I think, was during the school time. It's been like a summer working trip somewhere behind Prague, so it was quite a long way. We've been for 2 weeks. That was my first visit. Later on I visited Czech Republic for anime convention, but that was when I was a bit older, because I remember I was driving there in a car, so I already had a driving license by that time. And I've been at different places in Czech Republic. I've been in Brno, I've been near Znojmo borders from work when I work in UK. Drove a couple of times times through Czech Republic when I was driving home from UK to Slovakia. So yeah, we can scratch it off as a next country. So that's country number 5. Year is now 2005. I had full-time job. That was in a game development company and it was my first job ever. I've been working there for 2 years. I learned a lot. It was pretty amazing job. I was working as a 3D artist. I worked on Conan the Barbarian on PlayStation 2, original Xbox and a GameCube. And after that, in 2005, my brother decided to go to UK with his friend. So after 3 months, they've been in UK. I joined them as well. They already rented the whole house and that's where I left Slovakia and arrived to Leicester in UK. Got the same job as my brother and worked in a Walker's Crisps factory, packing crisps. I had a rare opportunity there as well to taste hot crisps as they come from the oven. I stayed there for about 1 year before I decided to move to London. So we can scratch the UK as a whole. So after a year I decided I want to move to London, so I found a new job and I was working for a stock taking company and I worked every day different place in UK. So one day we went Southport, the next day we went to South Wales somewhere, worked there for a day, came back. Third day we worked in central London and all we did was taking stock. So we went there, either 1, 2, 3 people with the scanners and we basically scanned all they had in the stock, including their storeroom. Then we downloaded all the data to the computer and somebody finalized the report and sent it to them. And this company was doing the stock taking for many different brands and many different companies across the UK. And we even been abroad from this work because this company had some contracts from the brands that have their shops in Germany. We've been in Berlin for a few days, we've been in Czech Republic, even been to Paris and France from work. And that is something I've been very excited about because there is that anime that I've seen. It's called The Roast of Versailles, that is set in France before and during French Revolution, that I really enjoyed. It follows the life of Marie Antoinette. So when I had the opportunity to go to the France from Paris completely for free, because this was a fully paid trip from work, I was getting very excited because I've seen the opportunity to visit the Versailles, which is exactly what I did. The first 2 days we were quite busy. We finished something afternoon and I didn't have too much time left to go to the Versailles. I did the Eiffel Tower and I explored a little bit of the Louvre and other areas. On the very last day we finished very early. It was not even 11 o'clock and we already finished. We've been doing these very posh brands, Burberry, and everything in that store is like crazy expensive, from a few hundred to a few £1,000s. But we finished before 11 o'clock and our flight home was in the evening, so that was perfect opportunity. I hop on the train, it's about 40 minutes ride by train, and then suddenly I was there in front of the huge palace and the beautiful gardens, and I was walking there in Ave. It was amazing, beautiful. I recognized loads of these places from these Rose of Versailles anime, and that was my first time in Paris, and I've been there many times after that. I've been there maybe 2-3 times on my own with car, so I can scratch off the France as well. I've been in London for almost 1 year. After that, I finally find a job that I was looking for all these 2 years for another game development company. This time it was called Evolution Studios and they were based in Runcorn. So I had to move out of London, and another friend of mine who I also work in a game development company in Slovakia used to live there as well. So we started living together in Manchester, and that was about 2006-07, something like that. So at that time I also started going home by car. I've been, I think, 2-3 years in UK, so I decided to give it a try and go home by car for the very first time, and that's also how I crossed to Belgium. So Belgium is one of these countries that I actually never been to anywhere except just cross the country, but I did stop in the car park a couple of times. I passed across the Brussels many times, and once I passed even around the Antwerp, but I never went to the city. I only stopped in a car park when I needed a toilet or need to take a fuel, but according to my rules I can scratch that country off. So let's get rid of Belgium as the next country. And we need to get rid of the Germany as well, because we've been there from the work from UK. I forgot about that. So, but I also crossed the Germany on the way home. So we're getting rid of Germany as well. So I started working in a Runcorn. It was for another game development studio. We were working on a MotorStorm franchise for PlayStation 3, and in particular it was MotorStorm Pacific Rift. And when that game was finished, the leadership of the company paid us a trip to Netherlands. So we went to Amsterdam for I think 3 days, and I think that was my only time that I visited Amsterdam in Netherlands. I quite enjoyed the visit. It was a very interesting city with lots of these canals and of course the famous red light district. We had like a paid excursion by the boat. We went for dinner to some kind of floating restaurants in there. It was quite a nice trip for 3 days. We can scratch off Amsterdam because I've been there from work. I even cycled from Manchester and do a little wild camping over 3 weeks all the way to the John O'Groats and visited the most northern point of the UK mainland. It was pretty crazy adventure. I remember out of these 3 weeks cycling, 2 weeks was raining non-stop, so it was pretty fun trip. I think that Europe is done by now and I started going on holidays, so we're gonna move to the Caribbean next because I've been in Cuba. In 2009 I actually been 3 times in Cuba. First time in South Cuba near Holguin city. It was in the place called Gar de la Vaca, which means protect the cow or something like that. And the beach was called Playa Esmeralda and the resort was called Sol Rio de Luna and Mares, and it was an absolutely amazing holiday. That time the beach was absolutely stunning. We've been there for 2 weeks. I think it was only 3-star resort. We did a couple of tours as well from there. We've been in the Holguin city on the tour, as well as swimming with dolphins and eating a lot. Second time in 2015. This time we've been somewhere in the middle, in the central Cuba, on the north, on the island of Cayo Coco. There was a huge island. There was one bridge that is connecting the Cayo Coco with the mainland Cuba. There was like a bunch of resorts on that island, and there was like a free bus that they had going from all the resorts, so you can hop on the bus and just go check out the other resorts. They had some kind of deals between the resorts, so you as a guest in one, you can basically spend the all day in any of these other resorts. The resort we stayed was called I think Melia Jardins del Rey, and that one was a brand new resort that just opened like 1 month ago before we went there. It was a 5-star resort, so everything was absolutely top notch in that resort. Everything was brand new. We also took the tours, couple of tours outside of the island, and experienced the mainline Cuba in that area. We also didn't rent any car in Cuba for the second time, but it was still pretty amazing holiday. On that free bus we've seen these speedboats. There was like a little sign that's saying like a speedboats ride, so we stopped there, we hopped off the bus, we went to check it out, but we decided to go for it, I remember, and that was the best experience in Cuba I had. These speedboats was really fast and I really had a time of my life. That was amazing speedboats in Cuba and Cayo Coco. Best experience in Cuba for me. And the last time we've been there in 2017, the famous Varadero Strip on the northern part of the country, and of course that was close to Havana. And I really wanted to rent a car this time and go explore Havana, but I remember Ludmila didn't want to rent a car that time, and so we decided to basically just go on a tour. It was still pretty good full day tour with very packed itinerary. We've been to the famous writer Ernest Hemingway's house Finca Vigía, visited the very grand looking Christopher Columbus Colon Cemetery, explored the San Carlos Fortress complex with huge cannons overlooking Havana, as well as ventured into the old Havana, having lunch in a local restaurant, and were driven around in all Cuban cars and then having some free time to roam around on our own. Before we returned back to the San Carlos Fortress for a cannon firing in the evening, this was like a proper tourist trap, as I think every single tour that was in Havana that day ended up here for the show after the dark. But the bang was still pretty cool and very loud nonetheless. So Varadero was pretty cool place. I also did the paragliding. in there, motorized paragliding. That was a bit scary as well, and that was a beautiful view of the entire strip of the Varadero from above. So that's the Cuba experience. I really love Cuba. I've been there 3 times and I could go again anytime. But if I would go again to Cuba, I would probably go not as a package holiday, but I would probably go on my own and do some exploring on my own instead of going as a packaged holiday. Nothing wrong with the package holiday, especially if you get for a good price. But yeah, that's how I would do Cuba if I would go again. So Cuba off the map. Start scratching from here. Also in Varadero, in Havana, that was the closest I've ever been to United States. Next country that we have is very special. It's one of those countries that is usually on a people bucket list, and it's Maldives. Maldives or Maldives, or how do you call it? It's been in December 2011, just before Christmas. We didn't stay for the Christmas, we just left I think 1 day before Christmas. We've been there for 1 week. And I had in my room this huge panoramic poster above my bed, and that I bought somewhere years ago, that featured the island of Fihalhohi from Maldives. And I never in my life even thought about, even dreamed about that I will one day be standing on that same island of Fihalhohi, which has these long palm trees that is like almost horizontally and then going straight up, that featured on that poster. And suddenly I had the opportunity to go, and we absolutely went for it. It was an amazing time in Maldives. The waters and the beaches was absolutely pristine, and it was the best snorkeling ever. And that Fihalhohi beach had the reef just like 5 meters off the beach, so you could just walk like 5 meters to the water. You stick your head to the water and you could see the reef. So many colorful fishes and flying in these kind of formations, all direction. It was crazy. I never seen so much sea life in the water before. The Maldives are completely another level, and if you ever had an opportunity to go, I cannot recommend it enough. And it was also very cheap for Maldives, at least, because normally this holiday can cost like thousands of pounds, and I think we had it under 1,000 pounds for 1 week. Cannot recommend enough. Beautiful, beautiful country and the beaches. Next is the Dominican Republic. I've been twice. The first visit was about July, August in 2013. We went to the north part of the country called Samana, and the hotel was Bahia Principe Grand Cayacoa. The whole resort was built on a cliff, so you had a beautiful view, but it didn't have direct access to the beach. So if you wanted to go to the beach, you have to take a lift. Beaches in the Dominican Republic are all public, which is very different than in Cuba. Also, the beach on that resort was not as pristine clean as in other parts where we've been. The water was a little bit more greenish color, and the whole beach has a little bit strange smell in there. But the best part of this resort was the pool they had on the cliff, and most people from the hotel spent the time up there where you had beautiful view. And this was the first holiday where we actually rented a car, and there comes a very funny story as well. So yeah, we arranged the car for a few days. We finally got the keys of the car, and before we went to collect the car, we decided to go and get our SIM cards. So we had internet on the phone. We went to collect the keys. I sit to the car and I'm looking at it, and it was an automatic. I've never driven automatic before. All the cars I've driven in Europe was manual. I basically had no idea how to drive automatic. So I knew there is like stick, you just move the stick from the parking to drive and you drive, yeah? Simple enough, yeah? So I tried to wiggle the stick and it didn't move. There was like a little button on the stick. I tried to push it and move it to the drive and it didn't move at all. So what I do, I googled how to drive an automatic car, and that saved the day, because the only issue I was doing wrong is I was not pressing the brake pedal. So Google saved the day. I pressed the brake pedal. I was finally able to move, to drive, and the car moved. moved. It's usually the other way around, like people cannot drive manual because they only driven automatic. So in my case it was quite opposite, and we haven't really driven too far with that car that we've got because the guy gave us empty tank. I assumed that the car will be full, so we went straight for where we wanted to go, and as soon as we left Samana, maybe 5 kilometers after that, the car stopped. So I called back the guy who gave us a car that we ran out of petrol, and he told he will come, but we were too far already. So yeah, that was a road trip. Luckily there was some locals around that helped me with the petrol. I hopped on some kind of like a bus, and he drove me to the nearest house that was selling petrol. It's a bit of a unusual practice because I expected when I rented a car I will get a car that has a full tank, but instead I got an empty tank, and of course when I returned it, it has like maybe like a half tank left. We've been to Playa Rincon on the north part of the island. There was no resort on that beach. It was completely immaculate beach. The next day we went west to explore El Limon waterfall, and that one was very impressive waterfall. I think one of the best that I've seen so far. So that was our first visit to Dominican Republic. Second time visited in 2019, and this one was in the eastern part in Punta Cana, and this one was for 3 weeks. It was the only time we booked 3 weeks holiday, and the only reason we booked 3 weeks because the difference between 2 weeks all-inclusive stay in Punta Cana and 3 weeks was only 50 pounds. Nothing. We also rented a car in Punta Cana. We went to Santo Domingo, the capital. We spent all day exploring the city. We experienced firsthand the traffic jam in front of Zona Colonial, which is like an old town of that part. After the Zona Colonial, we went to some botanical gardens. It has an amazing Japanese section. That was the best part of the gardens. We also been to another waterfall, the largest in the entire Caribbean, and it's called Salto de la Jalda, or Leaping Jalda in English, and that one was a proper hike. That was like a proper all-day hike in some kind of a remote jungle, muddy area, proper Caribbean jungle, and we just go. It was like 3 hours there and 3 hours back. It took us like 7 hours the whole trip. I had my brand new trainers completely destroyed in the One more thing we did in Punta Cana was we went to Sanoa Island. It was like a catamaran tour. You get to an island, they stopped in some shallow water. It was quite a nice tour. We started drinking the local rum, and by the time we arrived at the island we were so drunk. That Caribbean room was strong stuff. We've also done the off-road boogies. There were several providers in Punta Cana. We went with the Macau off-road experience, and it was quite an adventure, even though the boogies itself were quite slow to my liking. We've stopped at several locations, including a cocoa farm, some beach, and even at some cave with refreshing water after a long driving. It was a very fun day and would definitely recommend. So we can sketch of Dominican Republic. And Dominican Republic is this big island, and we're only scratching half because the other half is Haiti, and I haven't been to Haiti. We only have a couple of countries left. Next is Mexico, and this time we've been looking to buy holiday in Cancun, in Quintana Roo province, but after careful consideration, taking everything into account, especially the price, as Cancun was a little bit more expensive, not too much, but I think the Cancun one that we were looking for was about 1,200 per person, 1,1200, and then we found one that was just south of Cancun in an area that was called Playa del Carmen, and that one was a little bit cheaper. I think that was under 1,000 pounds, like 800-900. So we decided to go for that one. The resort was called Iberostar Tucan, and it was 5-star resort, and it was absolutely beautiful. It was so lush and full of vegetation. It was in some kind of gated complex that was called Playa Car, and that was like a very posh area. You can only enter after you pass security check, and we also rented a car. And of course, when we had a car, we had to go and spend one day in Cancun as well. That was the first thing we went, and we were so glad we didn't book the Cancun holiday, because the Cancun, while the beach was quite nice, it was just one concrete hotel after another with almost no vegetation at all. It was like a concrete jungle. It was so sad that Cancun strip of the beach when we compared to what we had, and to think that we actually had it cheaper than what we would pay for that Cancun place. So yeah, we were very happy with our choice. We've been all these Mayan ruins, starting with the biggest and famous famous one in that area, Chichen Itza. We've been there when the place opened. Was absolutely nobody there, not even vendors was in there at that time, so we had the entire area for ourselves. There were maybe like 5 people that we've seen in total. Then about 10-11 the place was packed. We were leaving at that time. We also did a couple of these cenotes. So cenot is like the collapsed cave that has water in the bottom and the top collapses, and you have like open cave, and there is like tons of them in Mexico everywhere. Big famous one next to the Chichen Itza, very touristy. They have tons of facilities, big restaurants, toilet showers, everything, car parking, and the cenote is quite nice though. We did quite a few of these cenotes in Mexico in many different places. Other than that, we visited a couple of other ruins. The Chichen Itza, like I said, was like a tourist trap. It's quite understandable because their pyramid is very immaculate in there. So we visited Ekbalam, Cuba ruins, and Tulum ruins. So Tulum ruins were on the south next to the sea. It's also a very touristy place. Cuba is the most hands-on experience because you can actually climb on the pyramid. I did climb on the top, and the best ruin for me was Ekbalam, and Ekbalam was like a compromise between the Chichen Itza and Cuba. You can go to every single building. It's like a half ruin, half still standing, and you can fully explore everything, including the pyramid at the end, which you can still climb. And they were still working on it. They were doing some reconstruction work or some archaeological work on that pyramid, and that was the best ruins for me. Mexico, amazing country, would definitely return. We can scratch it off, and that's probably one of the biggest countries so far we've been. So even though we've been only on Yucatan, in this place we'll be scratching the whole thing off. I think I scratched a little bit too much of this area, but whatever. We'll have to visit it now. That's all the holidays in Caribbean. And the next country we visited, and that one was just for one day, that's the Poland. We were somewhere on the north part of the Slovakia borders, and we just crossed to the Poland for just one day. We visited some thermal water park. We spent one day in there, and on the way back we stopped in some restaurant, and that was my only time I've been in Poland. And yeah, because of that I can scratch off Poland. So Poland is quite big country compared to other European countries. I think we are getting towards the end. There is only one country left, I believe, and that is Thailand. We've been on holiday 1.5 years ago with Pom. Pom is from Thailand. We've been there almost a month. We started in Pattaya as our friends from UK recently moved permanently to Thailand. They were based in Pattaya. So we started our first days in there to rent a car, and we started by going to Buriram because Pom is from Buriram, so she wanted to visit her mom, her family. So we stayed in Buriram. It was a very rural area. There was no aircon at all, but actually the sleeping in there was absolutely no problem. We had fans. It was a proper rural place. It was, the bathroom was basically just a shed, and for the shower there was just a barrel full of water. They did have a Western style toilet in there as well, but showering was just with cold water with some kind of bowls. You have to like pour water over yourself. So that was an experience. I really enjoyed my stay in Buriram. From there we started heading south all the way to Phuket, but we did stop just west of Bangkok. I think it was Nakhon Pathom province, as Pom wanted to see her sister. We spent all day with them. We've been to some temple next to the river, and then we take a cruise to some floating market nearby, and at the end her sister and her husband invited us to stay for one night. After that we continued on our way to Phuket. We stopped in Hua Hin for a couple of hours. We explored the beach and then carry on. We spent several days in Phuket. We've been to that big Buddha statue. We've been completely on the south. We've seen beautiful sunset, explored the area, stayed a few days. Then on the way back we decided to go to Koh Phi Phi Island. We spent about 3 or 4 days in Koh Phi Phi. Then when we were on Koh Phi Phi we got bad news. That friend of ours that we stayed our first few days in Pattaya, she unexpectedly passed away. She suffered stroke and eventually didn't make it. So just 2 weeks ago we've been together, and suddenly she died in hospital. Our next goal was to go to Koh Samui, but Pom wanted to go back. So we cancelled our plans with Koh Samui. We returned to Pattaya and we attended funeral. So we stayed one day for the funeral. We only had like 1 week left after that. We didn't want to go back to Koh Samui all the way. So instead of that we went to Koh Chang for a few days. We spent about 3 days in Koh Chang. We explored both sides of the Koh Chang, and after we returned back, we went through the Trat province. So we stopped in the Trat on the market, explored a little bit, and then come back to Pattaya. We ended our holiday in there. We returned the car and we flew back. So that was an amazing holiday. Sad experience that one unexpectedly passed away during that holiday. I definitely looking forward to returning back to Thailand, and with that we can cross Thailand as our last country. And that's it, guys. We can count the countries. I believe it's 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 countries. Actually, it's 16, as I forgot Maldives when I was counting, so 16. And the map is still mostly uncovered, so hopefully this year I might do a little bit more traveling. So this year I plan to do YouTube a little bit more seriously. So far I've only been doing like 2 videos a month. I was really taking it a bit easy, but this year I would like to do a bit more intense. I would like to upload at least 1 video a week, and a couple of goals for me for this year would be first to get monetized. From what I've seen on the YouTube studio, I am on track. If I would work hard on the content, I believe I should be able to make it this year, even though I still need quite a lot of watch hours. Subscribers not that many, but I still need these 3,000 watch hours. So we still have the content from the last year trip in the Slovakia northern part, and there is a 1 or 2 video from Bratislava coming. Then will be the last part of the extreme economy test that I did with my 406, and after that I don't know how many videos. I have quite a lot of material, about 2 terabytes of footage from the cabin stay. So there will be maybe about 10 videos, not very long. I plan to do about 10-15 minutes per video, but I will see. I still haven't edited all these videos, so that will be what I will be doing next. Hopefully the next video will be in just 1 week. So until then, have a lovely day. Bye.